Imagine this. In the year 1405, a massive fleet of ships, each taller than a small building, set sail from the coast of China. These ships were not just any vessels. They were the largest and most technologically advanced of their time, dwarfing anything the world had ever seen. The fleet's commander, a eunuch named Chêng Ho, led an incredible 37,000 men and women on a journey that would span over 28 years, visiting nearly every major port in the Indian Ocean and beyond. This is not a story from a fantasy novel. It's a true historical event that reshaped the world. The first Ming emperor, Chu Yuanchang, who ruled from 1368 to 1398, was a man of paradoxes. He came to power by overthrowing the Mongol Yuan dynasty and establishing the Ming dynasty, but his methods were often brutal and harsh. Despite his efforts to reduce the power of the bureaucracy, he made decisions that deepened the animosity between the regular civil servants and the eunuchs. One of his most controversial acts was the public flogging of high officials who did not show sufficient loyalty or obedience. This practice, which involved stripping and beating officials to death in front of the entire court, was a stark departure from the Confucian tradition that a gentleman should never be publicly humiliated. Chu Yuanchang's actions were seen as a clear show of power and a way to assert his authority over the traditional Confucian officials. After Chu Yuanchang's death, his son briefly ruled, attempting to return to the Confucian way. However, a palace revolt led by the emperor's uncle, Young Lo, brought a new era to China. Young Lo was a man of grand ambitions. He moved the capital from Nanking to Peking, close to the Mongol borders, and began to reshape Peking into a magnificent imperial capital. At the heart of this new city was the violet-purple Forbidden City, a complex of palaces, gardens, and lakes that symbolized the power and splendor of the Ming dynasty. Young Lo's vision extended far beyond the borders of China. He decided to send out naval expeditions to showcase the grandeur of his empire. For this task he chose Chêng Ho, a trusted eunuch and skilled navigator. Chêng Ho's expeditions, which lasted from 1405 to 1433, were the largest and most impressive naval expeditions in history up to that point. Each ship in the fleet was a marvel of engineering, with bulkheads to prevent flooding and a compass for navigation. The largest ships, known as treasure ships, were over 444 feet long and 180 feet wide, with 9 masts. These ships were equipped with everything needed for long voyages, including food, water, and even gardens for growing fresh vegetables. Chêng Ho's fleet visited a vast array of places, from the islands of Southeast Asia to the coasts of Africa. They reached as far as the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, and even the east coast of Africa, establishing diplomatic and trade relations with dozens of states and sultanates. These expeditions were not about conquest or colonization. They were designed to display the power and wealth of the Ming dynasty and to encourage other nations to pay tribute to China. The Chinese brought gifts of silk, porcelain, and other valuable items, while foreign leaders were expected to send tributes in return. This tribute system was a way for China to assert its dominance and cultural superiority without the need for military force. The purpose of these expeditions was fundamentally different from those of European explorers. The Portuguese, for example, were driven by the desire for wealth, resources, and the spread of Christianity. They used violence and intimidation to achieve their goals, often enslaving and brutalizing the people they encountered. Chêng Ho, on the other hand, practiced a policy of nonviolence and tolerance. He respected the religions and cultures of the places he visited, even supporting local religious institutions with generous gifts. In Gala, Sri Lanka, a stone slab still stands today, inscribed in Chinese, Tamil, and Persian, detailing the gifts Chêng Ho offered to the Buddha, the Hindu god Vishnu, and Allah. This act of respect and generosity was a reflection of the Chinese philosophy of live and let live. Despite the grandeur and success of Chêng Ho's expeditions, they were not without their critics. Some within the Chinese court saw the voyages as a waste of resources and a distraction from more pressing domestic issues. When Young Lo died in 1424, his successor, who was less supportive of maritime exploration, canceled the planned voyage for that year. However, the next emperor, a maritime enthusiast, revived the expeditions, and the seventh and most expansive voyage took place from 1431 to 1433. This final expedition established diplomatic and tributary relations with 20 different states and sultanates, ranging from Java to Mecca and down the east coast of Africa. The legacy of Chêng Ho's voyages was complex. On one hand, they demonstrated the technological and organizational prowess of the Ming dynasty and established a network of diplomatic and trade relations that extended far beyond China's borders. On the other hand, they also reinforced the Chinese belief in their own cultural and moral superiority. The tribute system, while initially successful in promoting peaceful relations, eventually became a burden for China. As more and more states sought to benefit from the generous gifts offered by the Chinese, the imbalance of trade grew, and the cost of maintaining the system became unsustainable. Moreover, the tributary system became a tool for foreign powers to exploit China. European nations, in particular, used the guise of tribute to gain access to Chinese markets and resources. The Chinese government, still operating under the assumption that it was the center of the world and had nothing to gain from the outside, failed to recognize the changing dynamics of global power. This lack of awareness and adaptability contributed to China's decline and vulnerability in the centuries that followed. The story of Chêng Ho and his grand treasure fleets is a testament to the power of cultural and diplomatic engagement. It shows that even in an era dominated by violence and conquest, there were those who chose a different path. Chêng Ho's voyages were a bold and visionary attempt to create a world order based on mutual respect and cooperation. While this vision ultimately proved unsustainable, it remains a powerful reminder of the potential for peaceful and inclusive global relations. In a world often defined by conflict and competition, the story of Chêng Ho offers a different perspective, one that values generosity, tolerance, and the power of diplomacy.